Hello and welcome to the Six Files for 16th October 2025. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Hey Mark, Peter Ryan here in Montreal. How did we get to the 16th of October so quickly?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I did see our good friend Nathan Muniz sharing in September that they'd already started celebrating Christmas in the Philippines, and I think that now that we're in October, I mean it's almost inevitable that you'll start seeing the wreaths going up on doors soon.
Yeah, well, I can tell you at the end of summertime in Canada, they were talking about summerine. You're already seeing Halloween stuff in the different stores and decorations, costumes. These things have become seasons, and it's kind of ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, Halloween, I don't start feeling the vibe until maybe a week or so before the 31st of October. Christmas, I can't even think about it until about the 18th, 19th of December. But hey, for everybody else, whatever floats your boat, party
Yeah,
on. Party on,
yeah,
as Wayne Campbell from Wayne's World would say.
absolutely. Why don't you introduce the subject this week then?
You bet, Mark. So I was really excited to catch up with Miguel Familia. Now, Miguel is based in the Dominican Republic, and he is effectively the co-founder and the CEO of Wise BPO. Now, Miguel's got a really interesting story. He, over the course of his career, has worked with some of the biggest names in outsourcing and CX, and he decided that it was time to set up on his own. He decided that it was time to take all the different factors and all the different areas that he'd been able to cultivate during his career and establish his own outsourcing operation. So I was intrigued by this. We caught up on LinkedIn and arranged a quick call to get to know each other on Zoom. And as so many times happens, you garner the sense of passion, of interest, of dynamism somebody like Miguel has, and you think, I've got to get him on the podcast for an interview. So we took advantage of the fact that Miguel is number one, a very personable person, but number two, very interested in sharing his story. So we went through a discussion where we chatted not just about his background, but also about his vision for outsourcing and where Wise BPO fits into that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And as you were talking, it just made me think that, time and time again, we keep hearing these great entrepreneurial stories about people setting up in this industry using CX as a way to launch a business. It almost makes me think that someone should write a Netflix show about Danielle Julien and 1975 in Paris, starting
Yeah.
a company with six phone lines in a room in Paris. You can imagine the drama in moving from a one room business to a multi-billion dollar business. So but we've seen it happen with so many friends that we have in the industry now.
We do, and so many successful friends. And I'm delighted to say that we can add Miguel to that list of individuals because what he's doing is remarkable. And what was, I think, really interesting, and we touched on this a bit in the chat that we had, is the fact he's doing it in the Dominican Republic. Now, I'm a believer that the DR is one of the pound for pound best delivery points anywhere in the world. Incredibly, not just bilingual, but trilingual population with a number of people that you find who have moved over from Haiti that speak French. It's literally a one-stop shop for North America, and it's also a great opportunity for talent to be delivering into Europe with regards to Spain and its CX requirements. So I'm going to recommend that we head on over to chat with Miguel and find out a little bit what's going on with him, with his story about how he set up Wise BPO and where Wise is going in the future.
Great, let's go.
This week's CX Files, we are very fortunate to welcome a budding BPO entrepreneur, but it's not somebody who doesn't come to the table with a significant amount of experience in the customer experience management space. And with that in mind, I am delighted to welcome Miguel Familia, who is the CEO and co-founder of Wise BPO. He joins us from his offices in Santo Domingo. Miguel, welcome to the CX Files.
Thank you, Peter. I'm actually a listener of the CX Files. Been a fan for quite a while now, and I really enjoy listening in. And thank you for the invite. Well, as you state, my name is Miguel. I reside in the Dominican Republic, born and raised. Obviously, a lot of traveling due to my professional background, and I'm very excited to be in the show today. Um, so maybe giving you a little bit of context of me, I started very young in the BPO space. Probably like 99% of the individuals out there, I had no clue when I started working in the call center industry. I was 17 years old. I just wanted a job, to help pay for my university. I had no clue this was actually going to become my career, my profession, and my love for the rest of their life, right? I think a lot of individuals that work or are even entrepreneurs in the industry probably have the same similar story, right? Now, the probably my own personal experience, since it started off in human resources from a BPO side and then turned more operational and then commercial. I think I've been through quite a couple of reigns, but yeah, very happy to be in the show, Peter.
Well, we're delighted to have you, and thank you for the background in terms of how you started. You know, Miguel, one thing that really strikes me these days is there are so many people that got their start in the BPO industry trying to work their way through school or just trying to earn a little bit of extra money and have now found themselves in very high level positions, actually running contact center operations or running outsourcing operations. My good friend and frequent guest on the CX Files, Jim Farnsworth, has a saying that nobody ever aims or expects to get into the BPO or CX industry, but when they do, they never want to leave. And I would actually tend to agree with that. And just for a little bit of flavor, you and I have a very similar story. I remember when I was studying and I was actually finishing my MBA off, and I was in Australia at a university in Melbourne, and I needed some money. So I applied for a contact center job. And I tell you, when you get on the phones and when you're on the contact center floor, everything that you thought you knew, forget it, throw it out the window. It is a baptism by fire.
I wholeheartedly agree. And you get enamored when your whole being is just meant to serve and help and assist others, lead by example, which is a lot of the culture
Yeah.
that you embrace in most of the contact centers. Then it becomes to be, because I've tried the market, right? It becomes to be difficult for you to find the same environment in other corporate
Yeah.
um, ventures and whatnot. So yeah, it definitely has very unique ingredients, which I fell in love with. Mhm.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey up to this point, Miguel, because we're going to be chatting a little bit about how you've taken the plunge and set up Wise BPO, but maybe talk to us a little bit about where you come from. You mentioned that you started when you were 17 years old. You were trying to get through university, earn some money to help that endeavor. Up until this point, what was your professional life like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started very young. I actually started studying civil engineering, which then obviously ultimately ended in business administration. But I joined the industry trying to get some money to pay for the university. And when I applied to be an agent, for whatever reason, the BPO at that moment, which was owned at that point by Verizon, they had a company here in the Dominican Republic at that moment in time. Um, they preferred that I was within their recruitment and selection department. So I was very much engaged in just calling people the old way, right? Looking at a resume, seeing if they had the just the hard skills and some of the soft skills we interviewed by the phone, trying to just make sure that enough people started to get evaluated and selected for the positions, right? It was very young. It was over 20 years ago. So the industry, we only had about two contact centers here in the Dominican Republic, and very little was known of how
Mm,
immense and lucrative the industry was going to become. From there, I gained a lot of experience in support departments within HR, some of financial aspects of it as well, and that that was very attractive for then bigger corporations such as Ericsson, for example, which I started working in Ericsson soon after I spent 5 or 6 years in that original BPO. And their interest was for me to get engaged in very interesting projects for mergers and acquisitions on managed services, for just setting up shared service centers globally using they're a huge organization, so they were interested in obviously seeing how through India, Manila, Spain, and some other locations they were able to create shared service centers to better provide experiences to the internal employees. So I've had the opportunity to not only develop myself in the BPO space, being a provider, but also working within a company, being let's call it somewhat a client or an internal client for other parties. So it was a very interesting experience. Um, once once I came back to the BPO industry, worked my way up in the commercial side of things. Um, you know, had a realizing that I think it was time for us to, and for me personally, to venture out and create my own journey as an entrepreneur with our own ingredients, cultural, employee engagement policies, and all sorts of things. So it's just a very good moment for us to start our journey now, and we took that decision last year. Mhm.
That's great. And you preempted my question because, Miguel, at the end of the day, there's never a perfect time to do something. It's you sort of know yourself when you're ready to do it. But if someone was to say, identify the perfect moment, right now there is, in the past, let's be frank, the last few years, we've had significant geopolitical disruption. The shifts in climate are becoming more and more worrying. When we think a little bit about some of the trade policies that are causing some confusion right now, especially in the Americas, somebody might say, "Wow, it's really quite something to be setting a business up at this moment." But you decided to take the plunge. So give us a little bit of a sense about what made you think now is the right time, as opposed to say waiting 2 or 3 years, or why not a few years ago even?
Well, right now it's a pivotal moment for us and specifically for Wise's journey. We consider ourselves a boutique BPO.
Mhm.
I don't know if I made that up, but that's how typically reference ourselves as a boutique BPO. And the decision to open up last year was very swift when we realized what moment we were in right now. The industry itself is obviously transforming with AI and technology. And the expectation right now is different from what it was before, right? Before, the expectation of a BPO was for it to attend to mass staffing requirements and face a lot of transactional duties with people. Now BPOs um, need to become more specialized, be a resource pool for specialized individuals at a lower cost, right? But what that means in essence, and that's our prediction, is that big players, right, the big players that we all know that have been in the industry for quite a while, will certainly start to struggle to maintain those humongous deals, right? While smaller or again, boutique BPO will start being a perfect fit to compete and start winning market share. So in a nutshell, the big players that are typically not interested in the 5, 10, 20 seaters because it's just not their model will start to struggle, and but that would be the type of business that's right up our alley, right? And
Mhm.
we can be very
Yeah,
competitive with that, right?
that
So
makes sense. That
uh,
makes sense.
and then in the same note, I find it so interesting, Peter, how the big players are now starting to kind of reflect themselves as a technology provider, a technology partner. And to me and to us in Wise, the BPO business is and always will be a people's business, right? Any potential client that has a conversation with us, anybody looking to do business with us, and they particularly start referencing to only look at AI solutions, we very kindly refer them to another place because
Yeah.
we in Wise believe that obviously technology is good to assist agents, have a good knowledge base, give real-time suggestions, use QA analytics, all that's good, but this is a people's business. That's our point of view, Peter.
But I think that you're right, and I personally have been very vocal on the fact that I think a lot of the outsourcing community members who are trying to reposition themselves solely as technology providers or as AI providers without being able to explain what AI actually does or is are making a huge mistake. In my view, the industry is all about customer service. It's about humans serving humans. Technology can be a huge part of that. And I think there's an argument to be made for technology taking over some of those interactions. The reality is, I don't need to call up a magazine that I subscribe to. I mean, I don't know if people actually have magazines anymore, but you get the point to say I need to change my address because I'm moving. That could easily be done online. It can easily be done with a robot taking information. We get that. But I think that your approach in terms of your vision about what BPO can do and your willingness to stick to that deserves a lot of credit, Miguel, to you and your entire team. So let's talk a little bit about what have been for you as an entrepreneur, putting aside your experience up to this point. As an entrepreneur, what have been the most important key learnings that you've taken on over the course of the past several months since Wise has been in place?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I'll try to divide it into three dimensions, right? I don't want you to consider there's three different answers. It's just that I think we can have a whole separate podcast just talking about that. But from a from a people dimension perspective, I think I already told you this is a people's business. So how do we translate that? Well, we take very seriously and listen very carefully to what agents and staff members in the industry, right, like and dislike. And then we set priorities tackling those dislikes so we can be able to attract and retain highly performing individuals, right? Because we want to always avoid that very scary revolving door, which is probably the issue that most BPOs have when they can't keep people in, right? You would be very, very surprised that pay is not the only and not even the main thing that motivates everyone. So that's one dimension, right? The people. Um, Another dimension I like to look as a key learning is from a client side, you know, we believe that the what really enables a long-term relationship with a client is becoming their source of truth, right? You have a frontline team that's client facing most of the times, and being able to provide them with insights and intelligence to those stakeholders that trusted your business since the very beginning, is what really, makes their job easier. They look good out, to their executives in their company, and they're thankful for the partnership, right? Now, how do we do that? Well, uh, probably the typical aspects that everybody looks into: data analytics, process workflow management, A/B testing if you're piloting out some new strategy, the focus groups that you do with the agents, with the staff, your quality management process, but it's more than just numbers, right? It doesn't mean much if your net promoter score is at goal, okay? But what are the friction points? What part of the process is stupid step that shouldn't be there? What are your recommendations? What should we do on our end? Is it technology driven? Is it process driven? Is it policy driven? Those are the things that really give us a very long-term relationship with clients, right? And then from a financial dimension, um, the key learning is really trying to be as lean as possible in every single aspect, more when you're international business. Look into the details: currency, exchange conversion, risk management, business continuity. All those things are very important, but should be definitely dimensioned correctly, right? For sure.
I think that these learnings are really important because the reality is that how you operate a business when you are the owner, a lot of these different elements you don't even think about when you're taking maybe more of a corporate angle to it, or when you're working with a corporate organization. That's always somebody else who's got that department, or somebody else who's got that KPI. But when you're looking at cost management, when you're looking at trying to keep attrition down, when you're looking at what's going to motivate an agent to not just work for you, but to stick around. That's really interesting. And staying on this point, Miguel, what has surprised you the most since you started operating Wise? What's been the biggest light bulb moment that you didn't anticipate?
Well, since we were talking about financial dimension, uh, that's exactly what surprised me the most. Traditionally, the BPO business has been recognized for being a big cap business, right? That means you want to go into the business, fine. There's heavy investments on facilities, technology, infrastructure, marketing, sales, like you name it, right? We wanted to avoid the big and unnecessary investment in the beginning because we believe it puts pressure on the business, which then is translated into us unsustainable, pricing models, right? So it was a surprise for us um, on how that thing turned out to be, and let me tell you what exactly happened. So we set ourselves to do things differently, to be a small cap venture, and that required us to have fully transparent conversations, both commercial and financial, with both existing and potential clients. And to our surprise, all the clients have been very willing to work together with us on strategies to improve working capital, to reduce the risk of low liquidity. And it's like everybody recognized cash is king, and these guys are starting. Let's support them, right? For me, I was originally expecting like a lot of pushback, like, no, we have net 60 terms, or we do monthly invoicing, or whatever the case might be. And it has been completely the opposite. Like, it's been very surprising for us, Peter.
So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the challenges you've encountered as an entrepreneur from the Wise standpoint. What have been some of the biggest obstacles that you might have come up against that maybe you weren't anticipating in this entrepreneurial journey?
Wow. In the very beginning, even before we formalized the company launch, let's call it the initial dimensioning of the business, there were a lot of conversations with longtime connections that sort of not only cheered us up, but we even considered them as part of the initial pipeline, let's put it that way, right? So when we came about and realized our vision, prepared our site, launched, had a very big event, the majority of those quote unquote, let's say preemptive spoken deals didn't really realize and come to fruition whatsoever. Actually, even the conversations and the relationship turned a little bit difficult. So all of a sudden, like it was even difficult to get somebody in the phone, and that was a challenge. So we quickly, said, what can we do different then? Because this is going to take a lot of time. So we found ourselves having much more success in investing well, both time and effort talking to prospects and potential clients which we had never met before. And those started to be very successful, extremely successful. So it was a significant challenge at the beginning because we wanted to avoid the burn of cash with fixed expenses while we ramped up. But eventually, what took us out of that equation were people that we didn't even know, right? Which I think is pretty interesting, Peter.
You again must have ESP because you anticipated the next question I was going to ask Miguel, and that was how had some of your prospective clients and longtime connections reacted to Wise BPO's inception? And what's interesting here is that what you just explained, what you just stated about how you found that there were a lot of initial contacts or people you'd known for quite some time that were interested and expressed an interest in potentially working with you that you put into your pipeline that disappeared. And unfortunately, the sad state of the industry is I hear this from quite a lot of people who are on the tech side, who are maybe doing a new tech startup in CX or who are starting up their own BPOs. They get a lot of encouragement. They get a lot of people giving indications that business might be a possibility and it doesn't come about. But I think you're very much an optimist, Miguel. You're a glass half full kind of guy because what you said heartened me around the fact that it's going out and finding those new ones and finding those new opportunities where perhaps the door might have closed on a long time connection, but one opens somewhere else. And it sort of makes me think of that Seinfeld episode where what was it? Jerry keeps finding that when he loses something, he finds it like just somewhere else. I think Lane threw $20 from his wallet out the window, and then he found $20 in an old jacket. It's that type of a thing. And that's one of the important factors of an entrepreneurship in the BPO space. It's resiliency. It's not getting discouraged. It's not finding a reason to hang up the hat and to quit. It's to keep going. And for that, I give you a lot of credit because it takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of resilience to really get a business up and running, regardless of the sector. But clearly, you're doing it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Peter. And I I I I believe the same. And don't get me wrong, those long time connections, potentially they just need time because you know, the cycle for new opportunities and the decision making typically takes 6, 9, even 12 months, sometimes even more than that. Um, but it was a challenge in the beginning because we were kind of expecting that that was going to fuel our startup,
Hmm.
and it ended up not being the case. But thankfully, we persisted, we were resilient, and the new clients, folks that we just started having a relationship with, were really open to having a conversation with us and listening to what we were providing as value, right? So I think
But you
that's a wrap
you
on
are
that. Mhm.
you are speaking to an issue that does exist in the CX space, and I think that if people were honest, they would say, regardless of what part of the world or what sector, ghosting is a real problem. It's become an epidemic in the CX space. And I'll just go on a little bit of a side tangent here, but I hear from so many people who are involved in our sector that you just, in many cases, just can't get a response from people. They'll give an indication that they're interested in something. They'll give an indication that they want to do business with you. And when it comes down to the rubber hitting the road, they just don't come back. And that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable behavior in terms of personal lives. It's not acceptable behavior in professional lives. Everybody can miss an email, everybody can miss a voicemail message, but if something has to be delayed or if it's not appropriate at that time, I think that you're like me. You won't be offended if somebody says not right now, or we're not going to be able to pursue. It's better to get a no or a not right now than no answer at all.
Absolutely. It is communication is key, and it goes both ways. Through multiple channels. Um, we get swamped with information, solicitations, solutions, people wanting meetings. I try to the best of the extent of always politely looking into what is being sent. If it's something that it's not good for the moment, at least a good reply to those business
Mm,
developers that are giving their best, trying their best to get new business for their own companies. Because I see myself, I see our organization in their shoes, and getting to a firm, um, let's say, understanding and either closure or aperture of an opportunity, it's deserving, right? And obviously, I think AI has sort of made us numb on a lot of the interactions. Like 15 years ago, it was people appreciated a phone call to at least
yeah.
get a brief introduction with somebody that had either private or previously done business with that organization or with them personally. But right now, it's unfortunately not the same, right? And I think it's just the amount of information that people get every day that has made us numb.
Yeah, and the channels. I mean, like I remember the good old days 20 years ago when you had two channels, email and your landline at work. And
Correct.
now people can get you on all sorts of different channels. And I agree, it's channel overload. I also think the expectation of people being on 24 hours a day is a little bit ridiculous too, but that's another story for another day. Just I'm curious, Miguel, as you're going out as an entrepreneur and looking for new leads, what do you find are the best conduits? What are the best channels to try and drum up new business these days? We hear a lot about trade shows, we hear a lot about advertising, we hear in mails on LinkedIn and so forth. What are you finding, without giving away the secret sauce, seems to have more stickiness than others?
Well, it has it referrals are the most important way to get business, and I'm not talking about necessarily um, business to business referrals, those that you get through intermediate companies or whatnot. It's just the people. When when individuals know who you are, what you represent, what you do as a person, and you're always available to give and serve and provide, uh, that the I don't know if it's the universe, I think it is. It sort of replies back in good faith with what you're looking for. I've had so many connections that are people asking me about, hey, that design looks great. Who works on your marketing? And I just connect somebody with somebody, or who does this for you? And I connect somebody with somebody again. And then it's like that little component of just relating, being social. Eventually somebody comes back and say, hey, I was speaking to my friend, which knows you, and it just so happens that I was looking for this. Is that something that you folks can help me with? And it is within our avenue, and then we start a conversation. And what channel that happens in? So, social media is important. Tools like LinkedIn, and whatnot are relevant and are important, but not necessarily from, just sending over mass messages trying to solicit. It's more how to relate with people, if you understand what I'm trying to say, Peter.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean, and I think that relatability is important. And one of the things that Mark Hillary and I talked about on a special edition of the CX Files, where we were discussing the challenges around LinkedIn, was very much the overtaking of the mail system with automated messages and losing that connection, that personal connection. And I'll be blunt with you, Miguel. Like, I built my business on the back of LinkedIn. This has been so important to meet new people, to gain new leads and so forth. And I really hope that the network is able to recalibrate, and that the powers that be within the network are able to bring it back to the original intent. And again, that would probably be another discussion for another podcast. But I want to finish off today by asking you what advice you would give a budding entrepreneur, no matter where they might be in the world, somebody who wants to start up their own BPO. What would your advice be to them based on the experience you've had thus far?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur probably has already some basic understanding. So I'll skip the advice on, being financially ready and preparing yourself to wear as a business owner multiple hats for quite a while the business is launching and its first couple of years. But I believe the most important piece of advice I can provide to any fellow entrepreneur is to be genuine, which is a characteristic that right now, um, I think sometimes lacks, right? Be genuine in their day to day with their own people, with their clients, with their prospects, even with, if they have business partners, with their partners too, right? And it goes back to the prior subject we were just talking about. There's right now a lot of information out there, a lot of solicitations, a lot of solutions, a lot of it is AI generated. So as long as an entrepreneur is prepared to you know, be themselves, trust themselves, and if they're great at what they do, show that they will organically succeed. So I think that being genuine is probably the most important advice I can give them at this point in time.
I
And
think
it
that's
doesn't matter. Genuine is not only how you talk and how you express things, is being so open and not falling into what other people typically do or what other people typically say. Just be themselves.
I think it's superb advice, Miguel. Thank you very much. We'll finish off on that note. So, Miguel Familia, who is the CEO and co-founder of Wise BPO, we thank you so much. Very last question. If somebody wants to learn more about Wise BPO, how do they find you?
Well, we have our website is certainly a good source of information, as well as our LinkedIn. Our website is wisebp.com. And you can find us in LinkedIn as Wise BPO, as well as Instagram and Facebook. I, however, I strongly encourage we just have a conversation. They can look for my profile, Miguel Familia, and just ask questions. It could be about BPO, it could be about corporate initiatives. It could even be about baseball, Peter. Again, being genuine is what's important. I'm here to serve. I'm here to help in whatever way, shape, or form I can. And thank you very much for the invite, Peter. It's been a pleasure for me for sure.
It's been awesome having you on, Miguel.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favourite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.